Welcome back to Call the Nurse. Today is a very special episode, a very heartfelt episode with a very dear friend of mine, Judy Thureson. Judy Thureson is a visionary entrepreneur. She is a best-selling author. After the heartbreaking loss of her son, Jacob, in 2019 of an opioid overdose, she has turned her pain into resilience, writing beautiful tragedy and creating the G.I.V.E principle as a framework for healing and resilience. Welcome, Judy.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much coming from Arizona and you being in town this week. I'm just so grateful. And we've known each other for years. It's been a very, very long time.
Yes.
And I feel like through social media, we've been able to really keep in touch. We kind of feel like we know, each other. Our girls are the same age. I think, your youngest daughter is my daughter's age, and they're both out here in LA. How are they? How is the family?
Amazing. It's just so great that they're close. So It's easy for me. I haven't really had much time to miss them because I'm here every couple of weeks to visit. And, So yeah, it's been wonderful.
That's amazing. You have two beautiful girls. And I know that this book, this journey that you're on has really been healing for not just you and your family, but for other people. And it's been so inspiring to watch you. But as we know, not everybody turns their pain into purpose. It's obviously not easy to do. So if you could just take us back to 2019, talk to me about what happened. I'll never forget that day. As so many of us that were close to you and your family, we're really having a hard time and watching you go through this grief as a mom before Jacob actually passed. Tell me about the phone call. Did you get a phone call in the middle of the night? What happened?
Yeah. I mean, I remember it vividly. My husband and I were having breakfast about 9:30 in the morning, June 13, 2019. And we were actually getting ready to produce a 30-day meditation mindfulness program that I had created of the G.I.V.E principle. And it was literally changing my life. And I thought, we need to get this in the hands of people. This is really powerful. And then I'll never forget, I said to him, I'm a little apprehensive because whenever I try to do something for me, something bad happens to Jacob. And at this point, Jacob was 18, but since he was 16, he had been struggling with mental health and addiction, and we were in and out of rehab, and there was a lot of stuff going. And at this point, Jacob was in a great season of sobriety, of success. He had gotten signed to Atlantic Records. He was doing his music.
And here in LA,
here
right?
In
He
LA,
moved to LA.
yes.
Yeah, I remember he signed a recording contract, I believe.
Right, yeah. And so he was doing well, but I still, as a mom, you just have this gut feeling.
Yes.
And Eric said, don't worry, nothing's going to happen. This is for you. We're going to do this, and we're going to launch this program. And not even probably an hour later, Eric leaves for work, and I get a phone call from Jacob's girlfriend saying that Jacob was found unresponsive, and he was being rushed to the emergency room. And little did I know that this program that I was getting ready to birth into the world was what I needed for me.
Wow.
And that's what helped me get through the next 2 weeks, which Jacob was in a coma for 2 weeks. And that's where, we talked, we saw each other, and you as a nurse was really helping me understand what was happening and interpret what's going on. And I'll never forget, I remember you talked to me and said, Judy, what's happening right now is a miracle, like just on a medical level, like this shouldn't be happening. And that's exactly in those two weeks, so many miracles happened. And with a documentary coming out called 2 Weeks Notice, it's about that, like
having those 2 weeks with him,
the gift that we got to have. And as a grief recovery specialist, and this is the work that I have been doing for the last 18 years, not knowing that one day I would need these tools for myself.
Not in this way, especially.
Not in this way.
It's every parent's nightmare.
And I think that's what makes the book so powerful, because it's written from a grief expert, but actually going through the actual grief and using the tools for myself and how I navigated it.
And so this is something you were already doing, this program, this G.I.V.E format. You had already been doing that. before he passed.
Yes, but I didn't really coin it give principle
Right.
until after he passed, because what I realized is, especially people who struggle with addiction, people who struggle with, depression, anxiety, all the mental health issues, is because they are so busy giving to others
Yes.
that they don't know how to give back
Yes.
to themselves. And the give principle is a tool on, wow, I wish I could have taught Jacob this. Because, after he passed, as a mom, you want answers.
Yes.
You want to know
Absolutely.
why. And I combed through all his social media and hundreds of emails and messages and text messages from kids from all over the world. And he was fielding all the problems of all these kids, of their depression and their anxiety and their suicide and their, suicidal tendencies and their addictions.
Right.
And I thought, wow, here I am as an adult. This is what I do. And I know how hard it is to pour back into me when you're giving that much to others. And Jacob didn't have those tools yet. And so the give principle came from this idea that, wow, we got to give to ourselves first before we can pour out to others.
Or put on our oxygen masks, before we help someone else. I mean, his music even he obviously talks about, the struggle and talks about the different things that I think all at the time teenagers, going through. And, having a daughter that has struggled with mental health, you just find yourself as a parent feeling so, helpless. Like what do we do? And to go through what you've been through and not even realize what you were doing was going to be what really helps you get through. That had to have been so painful those weeks following, though. I mean, going through. I remember you stayed at our home, and you actually bring that up in your book, which was so sweet, because I just thought, how do you help someone? Like, you feel so helpless even as a friend. What do you do? And the only thing I could think of, let's give her our home. It'll be like house sitting, you remember? And I know there was a lot of people, and I think you were still kind of just, in a lot of shock and going through the motions of planning a funeral for your child. I mean, no, we're not built for that. I mean, my daughter is the son of, the age of when he passed away, 18 years old. And what you've been able to do is so incredible. What do you think? I mean, do you think it was this give principle, even though you hadn't quite coined it yet, that kind of moved you from grief? Like you said, we talked about before, all things can be true, right? You can still be going through the grief. You can still have happy moments. There's the duality in life. I feel like I'm learning that in so many things. I can still be sad about my daughter and what she's going through, but I can still be happy that I got married again. And there's so many things that can happen, at the same time. But what do you think led you to inspiring others? Because we've seen people to where tragedies happened and they go down their own road of addiction, or they go down their own road of grief and never coming out of it. What do you think the difference is in those situations?
Yeah. Honestly, we all just have a choice. It's a choice. And I could easily have just stayed in bed.
Yeah. Justifiably crawled in a ball. I don't know how I would have gotten out of bed.
Eat ice cream and just call it a day,
Right.
Right.
And checked out.
I think I was angry. I was
What were you angry at?
I was angry that this is happening to this generation. And there's no answers, right? Like, I'm a recovering control freak. And so this was something that I couldn't control. And up until, you knew Jacob. He was the perfect child. And I always had this idea as a mom that, if there's something broken, you put a Band-Aid on it, you kiss the boo-boo and it goes away and we live happily ever after.
Right.
And this was one of those things that I couldn't do that. And I had to surrender and I had to let go and know that he's on his own journey and his own path. And, when he got his record deal, he was 17. Wow. So we still had a choice.
That alone is a bit of a miracle too, right? I mean, somebody getting a record deal at 17 years old. Yeah. How did you, I'm sure that was frightening of like, do I really want to let my kid move? And
so
let him do his journey?
Eric and I were both in therapy at the time. And our therapist, unbeknownst to each other, both said to us, like, this is not yours. Like this, you cannot control this. right? Surrendering and trusting the process
Right.
is all you have control over.
Yeah.
Because if it was up to me, I would have locked him in the basement
Yes.
until he was 40. Like,
Absolutely.
that was my plan.
Well, we keep talking about this little duck I've been having in my backyard and the lessons I've learned and this clipping of wings. And I want to clip her wings because I don't want her flying away. I don't want a hawk to eat her. I don't want to go too far. And then I realized I've been clipping my daughter's wings. She's got to fly. In order for her to like learn these lessons, I've clipped my own wings by controlling or, trying to stay small. And that's what we want to do, right? We want to protect our kids, but it's their journey.
Correct.
Right? They have to go and do it.
And so imagine if I would have done that. Jacob wouldn't have gone to get his record deal and become this influence to the masses. And now we have we can share our voice and these kids listen because they knew who Jacob was. Jacob was able to reach the whole world.
Right.
I mean, little sidebar, I was in India a couple years ago and we were in this little village, Rishikesh, I think it's called. And we met this girl who was singing at a little coffee shop, little juice bar in the middle of a village. And she was talking about taking us to the Ganges River because that's where people go to grieve. And she just lost her dad. And so I shared my story about Jacob. And she says, wait, Hella Sketchy? I know him. She's like, I follow him on Instagram.
Oh, my goodness.
In a little village in India.
Oh, my goodness.
And so when I think about allowing him to go and do his purpose.
Right.
He wouldn't have reached these people from all over the world if I would have kept him in the basement like I wanted to.
Right. Absolutely.
And the truth is, as moms, we don't have control. We don't.
We definitely, I was going to say, we definitely think we may at times, right? We try to control the situation, but we don't. Yeah. We don't do it.
So as painful as that was to let him go and for obviously the result to be what it is, it's also beautiful to know that that's what his purpose was here. Wow. And it was short and it's like a supernova, shine really, really brightly. And then that was it.
And it's gone. Wow. And is that the reason why you named your book Beautiful Tragedy?
Yes. So I had a dream one night and this word came to me, said beautiful tragedy. It was so profound that I got up in the middle of the night and I wrote it down because I was afraid I was going to forget it. I didn't know what it was for. It wasn't until months later that I was at having coffee with a friend. So Jacob passed June 27th, 2019. So this was September. I'm having coffee with a friend, and she's through tears saying, Judy, you have to write a book. Wow. I've been watching your journey. I've been following your journey. It's so inspiring. People need to hear your story. And I was polite and smiled, thank you. But inside, I was a little bit offended. Like, I'm a grieving mom. That's the last thing I want to do right now.
Right.
So I go to bed, and then the same voice in the middle of the night says, you are a writer. And then says it again, but not in an encouraging way, almost angry, like, you're a writer, stop making excuses and write this book.
Oh, my goodness.
So I got up the next day, and on my phone, I started to write. 18 days later, 45,000 words later,
oh my,
this book was birthed.
Wow.
Right? So I go into publishing, I go into editing. Now it's March of 2020. Do you remember what's happening March of 2020?
Oh, wasn't that was the thick of COVID, right? COVID comes out.
Absolutely nothing was happening, right?
Yes.
We're all sequestered in our homes.
Yes.
And the editor, publisher says, okay, this is your last draft. When you say go, it's going to go to print. Like, this is it.
Right.
And I just got scared. And I said, I can't do it. It's too raw. It's too vulnerable. We had already sold hundreds of pre-sold books. And I told my husband, I said, I can't do it. I said, refund everyone's money because I'm not going to do this. I go to the backyard and I'm crying and I'm just having a major meltdown. I get a phone call from a woman and she says, hey, I have a message to you from a Jacob. I don't know if it's going to make any sense. Are you open to hearing it? Now, I didn't grow up with that kind of messages from the other side.
Right.
I didn't know anything about it, but I was open. And I said, sure, if you have a message to me, I'm willing to hear it.
Somebody random.
So I get this random call. It was a friend of a friend. So my friend knew this woman. And she said, hey, are you open to hearing a message from Jacob? This woman says she has a message from Jacob. And I said, oh, okay, I'll listen. So this woman calls me and she says, right when I'm in the midst of this meltdown, she says, hey, I don't know if this is going to make any sense to you, but I have a message from Jacob, and he said he wants you to finish because he wants his story to be told.
Oh, I've just got chills all over me.
And I just knew, because that was
That's what
Jacob's
it was.
personality too. He was all in type of personality. And I remember he used to tell me, Mom, pee or get off the pot. Like he would get so mad for me being indecisive.
Right.
And I knew that was the message. And I stayed up all night that night, finished the edit, and it went to print. And since the book has been published, I've had many kids reach out saying I was ready to commit suicide. And after I read your book, I decided not to. I decided to throw all my pills in the toilet and tell my family that I need to go to rehab. And to this day, it's almost 5 years of the book. I'll get kids sending me sober anniversaries. Hey, it's
You're like their mama, right?
know.
Like a little bit of a mom to them.
So, I mean, I lost Jacob, but I really gained a lot of
A whole community of kids.
Mm-hmm.
Were there ever, I mean, when you look back, and again, we don't have answers, right? And I even personally as a mom, I mean, it's one of my fears, right? Again, we can't control it. I always tell, Haley's dad, if she were to ever get a hold of something that she could not feel pain anymore, she's going to be an addict. And how in the world, and we have a history of addicts and, in our family, I just think to myself, like, how do I protect her from that? Can I protect her from that? I mean, are there things when you look back, obviously you knew that things were going on. Any, not regrets, but what did you see then? If you're 16, this is when this started really with Haley, with my daughter. For me, was when she was going through some mental health struggles. I'm thinking, what? In my mind, you have everything. Like, what are you so sad about?
Right.
And the fear of her getting hold of something that I know if she didn't have to feel. I mean, she used to ask me, Mom, why did God make me this way? To where I just feel so intensely and people don't understand me. And I remember at Jacob's service, the minister talking about him being an empath and how it was so hard for empaths. And I know that because I think us nurses, we definitely are empaths. But sometimes to a fault, we carry everybody else's pain. And I'm learning to let everybody have their own journey and me. But that can be a burden. That can be almost an overwhelming burden.
Yeah.
How do you, when you look back, do you feel like there's anything that you could have done or intercepted, or what signs did you see that there was something more going on than he's just sad?
Yeah. Such a great question. And I think the frustrating part is, we went to therapists, psychologists,
did all the right things,
psychiatrists,
right.
counselors, ministers, you name it. And no one ever had this sense of alarm. I mean, not even 2 months ago, I got an email from his psychiatrist saying, oh, Jacob's due for his checkup. Right? So the fact that, and I'm sure the medical professional, the frustration of these are the people that we trust, that we look up to, that we say, hey,
help me.
Another doctor at Cedars, she's like, I've been doing this for 30 years. I see this all the time. Kids come out here, they come to Hollywood, they get a little bit of fame, and then they struggle, but he's going to be fine. So everyone around me is saying, oh, he's just going through a phase.
Reassuring you, yes.
He's fine. But as a mom, I almost felt like I was screaming, but no one was hearing me.
Oh, I can relate to that so much.
Right?
I can relate to that so much. Even when I was feeling like I need to send my daughter to residential, to this residential boarding school because I need to get a hold of this. Everybody was like, no, she's same thing. She's just, and I thought, I'm going against the grain here. Yeah. How could you send your kid away? And I just had to go with my gut, but it's so hard. Yeah. It's so hard to do.
Yeah. So 2 parts to that question is, I'm so grateful that I had the tools of being a grief recovery specialist, that by the time Jacob was 16, so part of the understanding definition of grief is when you have undelivered communication of an emotional nature. And so I lived my life in that moment with Jacob, is that I'm going to deliver whatever communication I have with him so that I don't have regrets. Right. And when Jacob was in the hospital for those 2 weeks, even though he was not conscious, we know that he could hear us. And every single one of us, from my daughters to my husband to myself, had one-on-one time with him to be able to deliver whatever communication we needed to deliver. Yeah. And when he passed, there was so much peace because we'd said our piece. Yeah. Right. And so a lot of times people have a lot of grief because there's oh, I woulda, shoulda, coulda, or I wish I would have said this. And we said it all. And since he was 16, when I knew going to his room, I would just brace myself. Like, what am I going to find? Is he going to be breathing? Is he going to be alive? You know, this kind of anxiety that I'm dealing with as a mom.
Yes.
That I treated every day as it was his last, because the way that we were going, it could very well have been. Wow. But imagine, like, if we treated each other like that, because I mean, we saw today on the news what happened, right? Yeah. Like every day could be our last. Yeah. And if we treated each other with that kind of love and respect and honor and really share our hearts and not hold anything back, right. Can you imagine? I mean, that's wholehearted living.
Yeah, it is. Even last night, some stuff went on with my daughter, and I get that feeling again. Are we going down old patterns? Is she going to be okay? And I went into her room in the middle of the night. I just have to feel, is she okay? Is she breathing? Because you just don't know. Yeah. You just don't know. And something that your husband said, as we were just watching the promo of this documentary, is he said people are so much more, it chokes me up even just saying it, because I feel like I'm guilty of this, my own daughter, is people are so much more worthy of our love and not our judgment. Because I think it's so easy to be like, what? Like I was feeling with my daughter of like, you have everything. How could you be sad? Or what do you? We want to judge them for what they're doing, and then we don't want to be judged. I mean, we've been around even the religious world, right, to where we feel very judged if our kids are struggling or they're doing things that we're not proud of. Yeah. It's hard to be open and honest, and then for you to kind of put your life out here in a book. I mean, did you face backlash? Did you face any judgment?
Absolutely.
Really?
And it's from the people
that loved you and knew you?
That are the closest to you, right?
Wow.
Especially in the religious world, sadly.
Yes.
Where you would think that would be the safest place to share.
Of course.
They were the ones with the most judgments. And I'll tell you that when I finally released it, I had police officers, I had political people, I had ministers saying, you know what, me too. My kids in rehab, we don't know what to do. And it just took the guard down, and it really allowed people, I think me going into the front line and sharing everything, like no filter, allowed people and gave them permission to say, you know what, me too. Right. I don't have to put up the front anymore. Right. And I was willing to take the hits for that. Wow. Because at that point, like, for real, what are you going to do to hurt me at this point? Yeah.
I've lost it all. Right.
There's nothing. Yeah. You can call me whatever names you want to call me.
Right. Or judge our parenting, right?
Unfit mother, whatever. Yes. And at this point, so I think that kind of resilience and there's almost like a power behind that, because you're just fearless. Like, what are you going to do?
Yeah. You can't hurt me any more than what I'm already hurting. But I think sometimes that like turns a mirror on people, right? That when we're being raw, and even starting this podcast and the fear of really putting things out there, it becomes triggering for people, or it's a mirror to people of like bringing up topics that she's talking about. What? We just talked about prenups and almost calling off our wedding, and people are like, I can't believe you talked about that in public. I'm like, but the fact that you even have that reaction tells me it needs to be talked about, because people are going through things, and not all of our business has to be out there, but for you to come out and be so bold to talk about, my son struggled and he had this. Some of the most religious people, it seems like, is that a mirror? Are there other things going on, or is it just judgment? Yeah. Just raw, judgment.
And that's something I can really be proud of, is I feel like, especially in the last 2 years of Jacob's life, is that he truly felt like we loved him unconditionally. We raised him in church, and so they were around a lot of that judgment. Yes. And so I think there was a fear of him not really being himself with us, because he knew what our beliefs were and what our, worldview was, and that he wasn't fitting that lane. And at the end, it was really beautiful that we could love him where he was at, and that he knew that. And so again, that brought us so much peace when it comes to the grief. Of course it's going to be painful, and of course there's nothing that's going to take that away. but just knowing and having security that he was loved
Yeah.
so
He wasn't
unconditionally
being
by
judged.
us.
Right.
That's I can go to my grave
Right.
knowing
That's the
that
best gift you could have
that's
given him.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
Given
myself.
him. Yeah.
And myself.
Absolutely. Do you feel like you ever struggled in your faith in God, or did you ever feel, especially with how maybe some of your friends or religious leaders may have interacted or judged, did you ever feel like angry at God?
That's really interesting. If anything, it brought me closer to a real relationship with God.
Yes.
And it really opened my eyes to the dogma and the religiosity and
The
just
legalism.
legalism and I have compassion for them because some of the things that were coming out of people's mouths, I'm like, really? Did you just really say that?
Right.
And it helped me to have compassion. Like, wow, people are doing the best they can with what they know.
Right.
And if anything, this has catapulted my relationship with God in a way that is about loving people with no judgment. I mean, I think that's Christ consciousness. Like that's real relationship. That's real love. And it's beautiful. And I don't have the stresses that I had, I think, as a young, Christian or somebody that was in the religious world. Like there's so much pressure and judgment.
Yes.
And
to really put up a front because you didn't want to look like you were struggling or imperfect, or it was really hard, to kind of keep up that front. That gets exhausting.
it does.
You want to be real and raw.
And there's so much freedom in just loving people.
Right.
Period.
Yes.
And that's what Jacob did. And he was our greatest teacher of that. And it was really beautiful. And I think that's why he struggled with his faith too, because he saw the hypocrisy of that.
Right. Yeah. I think the kids sniff it out quicker than we do. Because I think we're a little bit older. And so we are feeling we need to fix some things in our lives. But the kids are they can sense fake, or they can sense hypocrisy from, a mile away.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you and your husband grieved differently? I mean, obviously you have this principle that I'd love to hear more about as well, but do you feel he grieved differently, and were there issues even with you guys? I mean, you hear of so many people who get divorced even after the death of a child.
Yes.
Were there struggles in between that? And then obviously with the girls as well, how did everybody kind of work as a family dynamic after that?
Yes. Having the grief recovery background, I was able to process my grief in a way that was healing for me. And it was very isolating. And it was my own, like, even though we were both experiencing the same thing, my husband and I, we were grieving very separately. Where mine was more outward, again, like almost angry and just passionate about, okay, well, I'm doing something with this. I'm not going to let this pain go to waste. And in those early years, Eric just went inward, depression and just sadness. And honestly, I'm going to be completely transparent. There were moments where I'm like, I don't think we're going to make it, because we had just gotten too far apart in the way that we were processing grief.
Right. And you change, right? I mean, obviously that has to change who you are at some core level of losing a child, right?
Absolutely.
You're not who you are married to each other, that you've been together over 20 years at that point, right?
Yeah. We'll be 29 this year.
Wow.
This month. And, 84% of marriages end up in divorce who lose a child. Wow. So the stats were not in our favor.
Isn't that interesting though? Because you think you would come together, but like you're two different people grieving in very different ways and becoming different people than who you were when you met. Right. I mean, we all grow and change regardless, but that really changes at your core.
Right. And I'm grateful that I feel like we peaked at the right time, because we kind of came around back to the same path and lane and frequency, vibration, whatever you want to call it. We just got really aligned. And now that the kids are gone and moved out, I feel like we are enjoying each other in a way that we've reinvented ourselves. Wow. And so we're really enjoying, our marriage, and we're traveling more, and we're going out on dates, and
you guys have been everywhere.
It's been really, really fun, and really I think we had tragedy to go through those dark spaces to be able to really find the gratitude in where we are right now.
Right.
And it's, it was very close. Like I didn't know if we were going to make it through it.
What do you think shifted?
Again, a choice and a decision. right? For me,
For both of you.
for both of us, but for me specifically, is I had to let go of old stories that kept, because we're going to live out whatever stories we're
Absolutely.
creating.
The brain doesn't know either way, right? It's whatever we tell it.
And so once I just nip that in the bud, I get to create something new with him every day.
Right.
And it's a creation. Our marriage is a creation.
Right.
And we're both creating it and reinventing it every day. And that's what makes it like, it's almost like we are two new people every day.
You are.
Yeah.
But it takes two of you. I mean, because one of you easily could have checked out. I mean, if he would have stayed inward and been like, this is how I process grief. I mean, you probably, it can't be one of you. It has to be both.
Yes.
And you obviously both shifted. And it seems like he's really lately turned his focus to this incredible documentary that you guys, I know is going to help so many people. Did he adopt this G.I.V.E principle? Can you tell me what the acronym means and what that kind of looks like, just a little bit, so we can kind of, I know we've referred to it, but what is it and what does that, and did your husband, because sometimes some of the things that I do, my husband's like, what are you doing now? Like, what thing are you signing on to that is going to help you feel better? But now that he sees growth and change in me, he's like, oh, wow, what is that you're doing, right?
Yeah.
What is it?
So the G.I.V.E principle, like you said, is an acronym. Is whenever I use this for my meditation framework, and G stands for grounding. So just getting into some deep breathing, grounding, really being present, being in the room, naming what you see, just some grounding techniques to get you really present. Because when you're in trauma or tragedy, the brain wants to check out, disassociate,
flight, yes,
or live in the past and regret and woulda, shoulda, coulda, or in the future, what ifs, right? So grounding is so important to just get really present and clear. I stands for intention. And so for me, I ask Spirit to give me a word, give me a phrase, give me a mantra that I can hang on to and kind of anchor me to the moment.
Right.
And if you read the book, you'll notice during those weeks that I started to do this G.I.V.E principle, I would write down every intention that would come to me in my notes, not knowing that one day those would become the chapter titles. So when you read the book, you're literally in the moment with me. And, I remember the first day on that June 13th, the word was just surrender. That was the word. And every time I tried to freak out, I just brought myself and anchored myself back to surrender. V stands for visualization. And you alluded to it, right? The mind doesn't know the difference.
It doesn't know.
I just kept envisioning Jacob waking up and being, healthy, and that his brain wasn't going to be damaged. And because, when they found him, he was unresponsive, they say up to maybe 30 minutes. Wow. So the fact that he made it to the hospital.
Yeah, that's what I couldn't believe. 30 minutes, still alive.
Yeah. So this visualization of, creating what you want versus ruminating on what you don't want, which is what we normally do in those times of trauma.
Yeah, and freaking out of the worst that's going to happen, right? Yeah, we focus on that for sure.
And then E stands for expressing gratitude. And we already know the science supports that gratitude rewires the brain. But expressing gratitude literally changes the atmosphere, changes the frequency in the room when you say it out loud. And Eric was such a great example of that when we were in the hospital. I mean, he knew every doctor's name, nurse's name, receptionist's name. He's walking around asking people, how are you doing today? And everyone's looking at him like, your son's in the ICU. How are you being so giving right now? And I remember a nurse, I wish I could remember her name. I see her face, and she came up to us with tears in her eyes. She says, ICU is where death happens. And you guys have brought life here. They're like, this doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's not what we see in the critical care unit. We're trying to support, we're a nurse to the patient. We're also trying to, be with the families. Rare that you would have a family coming in and giving and showing and saying a thank you even to when it's your child because you're so angry or you're trying to do something, right?
Yeah, I was hosting meditation circles in the reception area with other families who were there with their family members in the ICU, and so it was a very surreal moment. So the G.I.V.E principle really is just grounding exercise to be present, kind of to your point, is not to run away from the pain, but how can we sit with it and really allow it to be our greatest teacher. Because we can't feel the joy 100% if you're not willing to feel the pain at 100%.
Right.
And so that pain is a gift. It shows us we're human, shows us we loved much and well. And, you know, the fact that 6 years later that I can still have all this emotion, you know, like it was yesterday is a gift to me, right? Some people will criticize that. Oh my gosh, isn't she over it already? Like, how is she still crying? I mean, people say stuff like that.
That's amazing. Wow.
And
oh my
I
goodness.
always want to make sure that my heart is soft to the grief because it's a remembrance that that's how much I love Jacob.
Wow. You formatted this give principle, right? This isn't something you read. This isn't a book. You created this before Jacob passed away.
Correct.
When I remember Eric telling me when you guys were in the hospital, I remember there was, I think, a pulmonologist or a doctor that was kind of giving the worst case scenarios. It's hard to believe I even remember that, but it was really bothering him because you guys were in such a different mindset, as you said, like maybe a different frequency, but did he start applying this? Because obviously something shifted where you guys came to the realization we're going to let him go, right?
Yes.
To where he was on a ventilator and you finally had to make a decision, right? To make him a DNR, or they had coded him and you finally said stop.
Yes.
Yes, that's what it was. They'd coded him and you finally said enough. Like how, especially with, you know, Eric processing his own grief and going through these 2 weeks. And I'm guessing that's why the documentary is called 2 Weeks Notice. You had 2 weeks with him in the hospital before he passed. Who made that call to say in the room? Were you all there? I remember, I think your daughters were there and you all were there. When they're working on him because he had coded, I think he'd coded several times. And I think you and I had talked and you know, at some point it's going to happen, but who said like enough's enough? Or do we all just look at each other and say, this is enough?
I was on the ground wailing with noises coming out of my body from the earth that I didn't even know. Like I can't even recreate it. It was so primal and so raw. And as I could see, you know, it looked like just doctors and nurses on top of them.
Yeah. Well,
and it just looked so violent. Yeah. And at that point, I think he had coded like 3 times that night already. And I just said, "Why are you hurting my baby?"
Yeah.
And I couldn't take it anymore. And Eric's looking at me because I think everyone was looking at me to see what, you know, when was enough going to be enough.
Right.
And I finally was like, we can't do this. And it was like slow motion as everybody left the hospital room. And it was just the family. And we all get to be around Jacob, and Eric had his hand on Jacob's heart and felt his very last heartbeat. And, you know, that's where beautiful tragedy came. You know, it's such a beautiful moment, such a tender moment, an intimate moment.
Yes.
And
a
tragic moment.
A gift as well, right? Because I think about all these families that we take care of, they don't get those. It's still awful and tragic and painful, but as a mom and dad being able to put their hand on his chest and feel his last heartbeat, he has that forever, right? Yeah. But I think, you know, we see in the hospital a lot where, you know, families want us to keep going. And they really, because a lot of them aren't there all the times when we're actually coding patients. And they really don't know how violent it can be, right? You know, compressions. And when we know that after time, the chances of survival, but it's still your child, it's still your family member. So I get it. But for you to really realize, like, okay, like this is enough. You're hurting him. Yeah. That's got to be so painful. Yeah. And yet so relieving as well that it's done. Like he's not hurting anymore. He's not suffering anymore. Right. And you got those 2 weeks with him.
Yeah. What happened earlier that night, we went out to celebrate Emma's birthday because, you know, during that time was in the middle of all that was Emma's birthday. And we went out to dinner And up until that point, we're 24 hours in the hospital. And
Yes.
at this point, we're like, okay, we're just going to leave for an hour, go to dinner.
Right.
And, we needed the break.
Right. And you guys weren't living here. Right. So you were,
Right.
you were here.
And so we all go to the restaurant, or we're heading down the hospital elevator, and Eric forgot his water bottle. So he goes back into the room, and it's just him and Jacob. And he gets his water bottle. He leans over to Jacob and he says, "Hey, I just want you to know that I love you and I forgive you. And if you want to go, it's okay to go." He didn't tell any of us this. So we're at dinner and we get a call from the hospital at dinner. We didn't even get to finish our food. Wow. And I hear this a lot from, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but sometimes they just need that permission to go. And so when Jacob finally, coded the first time when we were out, and then they revived him again, I can just imagine, because his personality was like, "Come on, people, I'm trying to leave here. Like
quit it. Get off the pot, right?"
Yes. And so finally, it's like, I don't know, 5 a.m, the last time that he coded, we just said enough is enough. Yeah. But you're right. I mean, it was as painful as it was, some form of clarity and closure, when you're there with them. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know where I would be if Jacob would have overdosed and then just died, and
right.
we didn't get to say goodbye.
That's why I think this 2 weeks thing, the gift we even talk about, just feeling his heartbeat, because that's typical. I mean, 30 minutes down and then not getting to have that closure, whatever closure it is. I don't know if there's ever truly any right. closure, but then having that time. Yeah, a lot of us, you can lose somebody in a car accident, or there's obviously something that was bigger than us, right? Orchestrating whatever it is that I think, your family needed. And now you're kind of living out this legacy, of inspiration, for him. It's truly inspiring, because, we can all visualize it. We can all say, I don't know what I would do. I just, what you've done is pretty remarkable. And it is true. I've seen patients wait for family members. They're not conscious. They'll, the last family member will get there, and then they'll go. It's the most amazing thing, and we don't know how much people hear. We it's been pretty clear. It seems like they do, in whatever state of consciousness they are, that there's still, some hearing. But there had to have been some peace with knowing that he told him it's okay, yeah. and then also you in the room as a mom saying enough. And him even potentially hearing that, right? Of my mama is telling, like, she knows what I need. Yeah. Enough is enough. Yeah. Tell me about this documentary. And it seems like, again, you've had your time of how you've expressed grief. It seems like Eric has really, dove into this realm with, it's one thing to write a book. I mean, you guys could have been like, okay, Judy's written her book. We've done some public speaking. Now a documentary. How did that give birth, or how was that idea formed? Where did that come from?
Yeah, well, Eric's a filmmaker yes. by trade, so he loves to tell stories. He loves to inspire, and he just started working on it. It's been in the making for a few years now. And I really try to stay away from it because, remember, I'm a recovering control freak, yes. and I don't want to.
We're trying to back off, not clip anybody's wings.
That's right. That's right. And I just say, hey, this is your thing. This is your baby. And, something interesting he shared with me last week that I didn't even think about, but he just said, I feel like there's a lot of grief knowing that this is about to end because in some strange way,
yes.
being day in and out of editing and interviewing
yes,
and
talking about him
with all of Jacob's friends and colleagues, and it was a way of keeping Jacob alive for him.
Well, I kind of feel, knowing both of you, I'm sure you'll find something else that you're going to find yourself into. I don't think you're just going to stop, but I do hear you that there's something that's kind of you're working on, and it has to do with him.
Yeah.
So you're constantly talking about him and his life.
Right.
Yeah, I could see where that would be hard to stop.
Right. Yeah.
But then you're going to deal with like it coming out and everybody seeing it right. and seeing the fruits of all that labor. That's right. going to be a whole other, wave of impact that you guys are going to have.
Right. And even just seeing the trailer, that was the first time for me seeing kind of what he's been working on, and this feeling of, wow, this is something bigger than us. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This feels this is not us. You know, this is not about Jacob, really. It's about how can we serve and bring light to this stigma of addiction, of mental health, and bring awareness so that people can have these conversations in a non-judgmental way, in a way that, you know, parents are walking on eggshells with their kids because they don't know what to do.
Absolutely. Is that what is the kind of the heart and the story? Is it not just about Jacob's life, but where do we go kind of in this culture? Because that was going to be my next question to you is, what's your advice to parents who kind of see that their kids are struggling and they don't know what to do? Maybe they haven't hit, you know, drugs or addiction or anything of that yet, but maybe they just see their kids struggling. I mean, do you have any advice? And then the second part of that is, what advice do you have for grieving parents?
Yeah. So I think hopefully that the film will give parents permission to just be with, not try to fix, not try to control, but how can we just be with what is in front of us and love what is without judgment. Eric's curated a group of individuals who are doing a lot of alternative types of treatments, seeing that there's not a one size fit all. And I think that's the frustrating for mental health.
Mental health.
I think that's what was frustrating for us.
Yeah, because you did it all. You did all the right things, right, of what we would think to do.
Right. And for parents to be the biggest advocate for their kids, because if we just leave it up to the professionals, no offense, I know you're one of the professionals
in it.
Is that
they're going to say this is a normal part of life, they're struggling, or it's a phase, or prescribe meds. Because there was a time, and I don't know if you experienced this, where I felt like at times my kid was a chemistry experiment. Because I'd try this medication, it was supposed to make her feel better, and then she would be off. And then right now we're getting off of some things, and she's kind of a different person that we're dealing with right now. And it's hard. It's hard because you trusted these. The world told me these people know what they're doing. Help my kid. I totally relate to you when you say I was screaming and they're not really listening. And if they're listening, they don't know, they're not really sure what to tell me.
Right. Yeah. Same, we had that same thing with Jacob, and then because it had such bad side effects, right? Then you blame yourself as a mom.
Oh yeah.
Oh, did I do the right thing? What else? And so I think just helping be with and trusting our mama instinct, our intuition, our gut, and loving them and knowing that they're on a path of their own, and there's nothing that we can do not to clip their wings, and really just loving every part of the journey.
Yeah. All the messy action, even the messy parts, right?
Yeah. And then the question is, how do you help grieving parents?
Yeah. So parents who have lost kids or just lost family members to addiction, do you have any advice for them, or what's kind of helped you to, obviously you're not over it, but just move through it? Because I really think that is so powerful. We were talking earlier, why do other people turn to addiction when there's grief, but it's going through that pain? That's the hardest part, because all of us would want to numb out in some way. And maybe it's not, drugs, but when we're going through grief, whatever it may be, I feel like for me, I was grieving the loss of the teenage years with my daughter. It's not what I thought. I thought she's going to be doing proms and homecoming, and it's not what it looked like. I had to grieve that. And there were times I wanted to just, check out. Yeah. But I think the first time I was vulnerable, and I remember posting me crying, taking her back to the boarding school. And I just posted me cry. I was trying to do a video of us, and I just started weeping, and I thought, I'm not going to stop because this is real. Because I got some great pictures on Instagram, but this is the real. And I don't think I've gotten probably the most response, people reaching out to me, because they finally were like, oh my gosh, this gave them permission to talk about their own child. And then it wasn't just about the pretty pictures, right? Kind of the same with you, what you guys are doing, bringing out the stuff that we don't really want to talk about, in the grief of that. But how do you help what do you say to other parents, when they're feeling this right now for the first time of like, oh my gosh, I just lost my son or daughter. Yeah. What would you tell them to do?
So not for the grieving parents, but for the people supporting the grieving parents, I want to say that
Good point.
we're very grief illiterate in the West. You know, I just traveled from, I was in Thailand, I was in Bali.
Yes.
Like when people die, there's rituals.
There
There's
are. Even when dogs die, even they do these little rituals and ceremonies. I was
Right.
amazed at that.
Right.
Really moved by that when I was in Bali.
Mm-hmm. And when you think about the West, we're told, oh, there's 5 stages of grief,
Yeah.
which isn't true, by the way.
Right.
We can talk about that another time. But what happens when you have a 5-part, okay, I clicked all the boxes, but I still feel like crap. How do you feel after that? You feel like, oh, I must be broken. Something must be wrong with me. I must not have done it right. Right. So it, again, puts so much of the burden on the griever.
Yes.
So I just want to share that for the people that are supporting the grieving parents is to not be afraid to say the wrong thing. I would rather have somebody say the wrong thing to me than be silent. And a lot of times we get the silence because people don't know what to say.
Right.
And they say things like, oh, let me just give them their space. Grieving happens when we are in proximity with people in a shared space where we can heal together.
Right.
And when we isolate and tell people, oh, just when you're ready or when you have enough space, then I'll talk to you, that just isolates the grievers more and more. So not to be afraid to just sit with them. Again, you don't have to fix them. You don't have to have all the answers. Sometimes just crying with them, like what you did, right? When I was in the midst of my grieving and you just offered support. Hey, I don't know if this is going to help you, but come stay at my house, right? Like the action,
doing something, moving through the uncomfortability of I'm going to say the wrong thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because of my grief experience, I know that, and this is not a politically popular opinion, is that the responsibility lies on the griever to ask for what they want because people can't read their minds.
Right.
So I remember when I got back to Arizona, I told my friends, okay, I need somebody to help clean my house. I need somebody to help make dinners. I need lots of chocolate and lots of wine.
Right.
Like now.
Yes. Personal responsibility of what I need. And this is exactly what I need.
And not to be afraid to ask for it.
Right.
Because people want to help you. They just don't know how.
Yeah.
And so people don't like that a lot of times because they, I'm the one that's grieving. People should know. It's like,
no, we don't
know.
We don't know. Well, I think that's great advice. And if I'm not mistaken, you're doing some coaching. If people hear this, they want to work with you or they want your book or they want to know what's going on. When does the actual documentary come out?
We're in production right now. So probably like February.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
2026.
Getting close.
Coming soon.
So yes, you can find me, judythureson.com, Judy Thureson on Instagram or Facebook. I'm a very open book. So come friend me, follow me. My book, Beautiful Tragedy, you can get that Barnes & Noble or Amazon. Where else? Yeah, just reach out. I host retreats. I own 2 Pilates studios in Arizona, one in Scottsdale, one in Gilbert. And it's not just Pilates, but we really create a safe space for transformation for mind, body, and spirit. Wow. So that's my passion, is just helping people work through, the hard stuff and letting you know you're not alone.
Wow. Well, this has made me wish I had spoke to you sooner about my own. So we will talk again. Thank you so much. Thanks for making time to do this. And we'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us here on Call the Nurse. We will see you next shift.